Welcome to Binge Watchers, where we talk about the stories and characters we love and the shows they live in. My name is Ron, and let's talk about season 1 of the Amazon original Carnival Row. So some of you may already know that I'm a huge fantasy fan. I read almost exclusively fantasy and a lot of it. So whenever I see what looks to be a tasty fantasy story on a TV show, I'll be like, yes. Especially when it's like a big high profile show. Orlando Bloom, Cara Delevingne, those are pretty big names. So with all of that in mind, I went into Carnival Row pretty much blind. I didn't read or watch anything about it beforehand. And it was okay. It was pretty good, I guess. I had some fun with it. Okay, review over. No, review not over. You know me better than that. So the thing I loved most about this show is the world, the setting. They keep it pretty narrow, which I think was a really good choice for the scope of this show, and it works pretty well. The main story has to do with a war that was fought in a place called Tiranoc. This was the homeland of the Fae, and it was attacked by a human alliance called the Pact. The Pact slaughters and enslaves the Fae, and another human kingdom called the Republic of the Burge comes along to fight along with the Fae. Eventually, the Pact wins, and lots of Fae and other fantastical creatures run to the Burge as refugees. That's where most of the story happened. Just like in most similar situations in the real world, and the things that this is very clearly a commentary about, where refugees or a large amount of immigrants come to a new country, you have issues of racism and blaming the immigrants and refugees for all problems. They're taking our jobs and that kind of thing. And they get relegated to pretty much being second-class citizens, only doing the shittiest of jobs and so on. All of that I thought was done pretty well. It's all pretty much commentary on real world problems, as we said, just dressed up in fantasy makeup. But it looks great and the world feels real enough for you to buy it. The main story follows Philo. The main story follows Philo and Vignette. Philo is a police officer in the Burge, and Vignette is a Fae who fought against the Pact in Tiranoc and recently fled to the Burge. And both of them have a history together that we get to explore throughout the story. So it felt like the show really relies heavily on how good the world looks, how cool everything is, and the fact that they have some pretty big name performers at the front of this show. There were a lot of moments that felt pretty poorly written. I'll give you one example, and this isn't a spoiler. There's one scene where you have two people standing on a balcony. One has his back turned and is looking over the city, and the other wants to stab him. And the stabby person is a trained killer, but instead of sneaking up on him, they just run and scream, and it's just an excuse to get them to the next situation. So it really doesn't make any sense. If you wanted them to fall off the balcony together, maybe just have them fight or something. Anyway, there are quite a few moments like this throughout the show. It's not the worst, but it does feel like this caliber of show deserved stronger writing. I thought Orlando Bloom was the highlight of this show. He was really good as Philo. He's a very archetypical character, the cop with the dark past, but he does it well and pulls off the whole strong but vulnerable vibe. And it's his personal story that was driving the plot along. It's a very twisty, turny kind of story, lots of reveals, almost too many, so you don't necessarily care enough about each one, so all of them could have an impact. So it's all kind of fine. It's okay. It's an okay show. Not every show out there is going to be the best thing ever. One story I did really like was one of the side stories about this rich family that faces financial troubles, and as a result of that, they have to have a more honest look at their own biases and examine why they care so much about what other people think. If you watch the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I really liked that whole story. Bottom line, should you watch it? You know, I don't think this was some amazing show, but if you're a fan of fantasy like I am, it will probably have something for you like it did for me, at least in the world and the setting. The performances are good, the show looks amazing, and the story, you know, it's nothing new, and the writing does feel very lazy at times. But overall, it's a good time and it's a pretty quick watch. And it's cool to see these types of ideas get this sort of backing. Obviously, I would have loved it if this show was better, but it's still super cool to see Amazon investing in this type of show. This show gets a fine out of 10. What about you? Have you watched Carnival Row? What were your thoughts about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments down below and let's get the discussion going. If you're going to be talking about spoilers, please use spoiler tags in your comments. And if you're finding Binge Watchers for the first time, welcome. I'd like to invite you to join the Binge Watchers community. Come talk about TV with us. It's a lot of fun. Subscribe to the channel and do the things. But in any case, keep binging. And I'll see you next time.